After months on the freezing streets of Cincinnati, Mac Miller had become invisible to most people. He was 62, but looked much older. His tangled gray beard, cracked hands, and hollow cheeks gave him the look of a man who'd been forgotten by time. Wrapped in a thin, filthy blanket, Mac sat slouched against the wall of an abandoned storefront. The cardboard sign in front of him was soggy from yesterday's snow. It read, "Veteran, need help. God bless." It wasn't exactly true. Mac had never served in the military, but he'd learned that people were more likely to give if they thought he had. He didn't like lying, but it was survival now. His boots were torn at the soles. He wiggled his toes to check if he could still feel them. Barely. The cold bit through. His skin like knives. February in Cincinnati was brutal. He hadn't eaten since the day before yesterday. A church lady had given him half a sandwich. He'd saved half of that for today, but a rat had gotten to it during the night. People rushed by on the sidewalk, heads down, eyes averted. A woman passed by carrying shopping bags. "Spare some change?" Mac asked, barely louder than a whisper. She didn't even flinch. Mac looked down at the nearly empty paper cup in front of him. 82 cents. Not even enough for the dollar menu. He sighed and leaned his head back against the cold brick. Then he saw a man walking toward him. Well-dressed, dark wool coat, gloves, coffee in one hand. Phone in the other? Mac squinted. Something about the man seemed familiar. He couldn't place it. Maybe he'd seen him on TV. The man was about to walk past when he ended his phone call, slipped the device into his pocket and turned slightly. Mac's heart jumped. This was his moment. "Can you give me $1?" Mac rasped, voice hoarse from the cold. The man stopped. That alone was unusual. Most people didn't stop. Mac prepared himself for the usual response. A shake of the head, maybe a forced smile, and then the man would walk away. But he didn't. Instead, the man bent down and gently placed his coffee on the ground. He pulled off his gloves slowly, like he was preparing for something more serious than a sidewalk encounter. And then he did something Mac hadn't seen in years. He sat down, right there, on the freezing pavement. "My name is Bill," he said, extending a hand. "Bill Gates, what's yours?" Mac blinked. He stared at the man's outstretched hand, confused. Nobody had asked his name in years. Nobody wanted to know the name of a homeless man. He hesitated, then reached out and shook the hand with his own cracked, filthy fingers. "Mac," he said. "Mac Miller." "Nice to meet you, Mac," Bill said with a calm, steady voice. He sounded like a man who was used to being listened to. "How long have you been out here today?" "Since about 6 this morning," Mac answered. "Shelter kicked us out at sunrise." Bill nodded slowly as if every word mattered. "And how long have you been homeless?" he asked gently. 8 years. Give or take. That's a long time. Mac chuckled bitterly. Feels like longer. A woman walking past stared at them, at the strange sight of one of the richest men in the world sitting next to a homeless man like they were old friends. Bill didn't notice, or didn't care. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Mac hesitated. He wanted to say no, wanted to keep a shred of pride, but he was starving. "Yeah," he said. "Always." Bill stood up and offered his hand again. "Come with me. There's a diner around the corner. Food's decent. Coffee's hot. I'd like to hear your story." Mac stared at him. Was this a trick? A camera prank? A setup? But the sincerity in Bill's eyes said otherwise. Slowly, Mac took the hand and rose to his feet. His knees cracked. His spine protested. But something else inside him, something long asleep, started to stir. "You really want to hear my story?" he asked. "I do," Bill replied. "And I have my reasons." They walked side by side. The billionaire and the beggar. People stared. Mac didn't care. Because for the first time in a very long time, someone had stopped. Someone had listened. Someone had asked his name. And that was worth more than $1. The diner was small, warm, and smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee. Heavenly to someone who hadn't eaten a hot meal in days. Mac hesitated at the door, his hand trembling as he reached for the handle. "I don't think they'll let me in," he mumbled. "Places like this, they see me and they—" "You're with me," Bill said firmly, pulling the door open. Inside, a waitress looked up. Her eyes narrowed the second she saw Mac. He could feel it, judgment, suspicion. But Bill didn't flinch. "Table for 2, please." he said with the calm authority of a man who never had to repeat himself. They were seated in a corner booth. Max slid in slowly, his knees aching. The warmth inside made him realize just how frozen he was. His fingers tingled painfully as blood returned to them. "Order whatever you want," Bill said, handing him a menu. Mac looked at the glossy pages. He couldn't remember the last time someone handed him a menu, let alone asked what he wanted. He always took what was given, when it was given. He glanced up. "You serious?" Bill nodded. "Anything." Max swallowed hard. "I'll get the big breakfast. Eggs, bacon, pancakes, and coffee." "Make it 2, Bill told the waitress. She jotted the order quickly and walked off, still casting glances at Mac like he was going to run off with the silverware. When they were alone again, Bill leaned in slightly. "So, tell me about your life." Mac chuckled dryly. "Which part? The one where I had a job and a house, or the part where I sleep behind dumpsters?" "All of it," Bill said. "Start wherever you want." Mac stared at the steam rising from his coffee cup. The warmth of it, the smell, the feeling of being indoors. His eyes stung suddenly, and not from the cold. "I wasn't always like this," he said. "I had a job. 26 years on the line at Miller Manufacturing. Built car parts. Honest work, long days. Hurt my back more than once, but I did it." Bill listened without interrupting. "We had a house," Mac went on. "Small place on Elm Street. 2 bedrooms, little yard. My wife, Rita, planted yellow daisies every spring. She loved those flowers. You have kids?" Bill asked gently. 2, Tommy and Sarah." Mac smiled faintly. "Tommy was my ball player. I coached his little league team. Sarah was a bookworm, always buried in some fantasy novel." The food arrived, piled high and steaming hot. Mac tried not to devour it like a wild animal, but he couldn't help it. Bacon vanished in seconds. The eggs followed. Bill didn't say anything. Just let him eat. "We weren't rich," Mac said between bites. "But we were okay. Took a vacation to Myrtle Beach one summer. Had a beat-up car, but it ran. Life was normal." He paused. "Then the plant shut down. Moved everything to Mexico. After 26 years, they gave us 2 weeks' notice and a small check." Bill's expression was unreadable. He nodded slowly. "I was 54, Mac continued. Bad back, no degree. Nobody wanted to hire me. Not when they could get someone younger, faster, cheaper." He took a long sip of coffee. "Rita got sick not long after. Lupus, it hit hard. Some days she couldn't even sit up. No more insurance after I lost the job. Medical bills stacked up fast. We burned through our savings, just trying to keep the mortgage. Paid in her medicine filled." He pushed his empty plate away. "Eventually, we lost the house. Rita's sister took her and the kids in, but she made it clear I couldn't stay too. Place was small. She said she didn't want a grown man with no job sleeping on her couch." Bill frowned. "That must have been hard." Mac nodded. "Yeah, first night I slept in my car. Parked behind a grocery store. Used a gym membership to shower. Tried to get work, anything. Mowing lawns, moving boxes, even cleaned gutters. But it was never enough." His voice dipped lower. "Then the car broke down. Sold it for scrap. That was the end of having shelter. Started staying in the shelter downtown when there was space. Other nights I'd sleep in alleys, behind buildings, wherever I could." He looked up. "I tried to stay in touch with Rita and the kids. Called from the library when I could, but it got harder. Rita was still sick. The kids were struggling. I missed Tommy's graduation. Was drunk in a park that day. Couldn't face them." Bill said nothing, just listened. "Rita finally told me not to call until I was sober and had a job. Said the kids didn't need more disappointment, and she was right." Silence fell over the booth for a moment. "After that," Mac said softly, "I just disappeared. 8 years gone." Just like that. The waitress returned with refills. Mac wrapped his hands around the warm mug and stared at it. Bill leaned forward. "If you could have anything right now, what would it be?" he asked. Mac laughed bitterly. "A time machine. Go back and tell myself to learn computers or something." Bill smiled faintly. "Besides that," Mac thought for a moment. "A second chance," he said finally. "But guys like me don't get those." Bill didn't flinch. "What if I told you I might be able to offer you one?" Mac's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Bill reached into his coat and pulled out a card. It was a key card to a hotel. "I want you to rest tonight," he said. "Warm bed. Hot shower. No strings attached. Then tomorrow morning, I'd like to show you something." Max stared at the card, then at Bill, then back at the card. "I don't get it," he said. "Why are you doing this?" Bill's voice was quiet but clear. "Because people like you matter. Because I've spent decades trying to solve big problems with big systems. And I realized somewhere along the way, we stopped listening to the people at the bottom." He stood. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow I'll explain everything." He placed the card on the table, dropped cash for the food, and left. Max sat in silence, staring at the card. A hotel room, a warm bed, a stranger who hadn't just walked by. He picked up the card and turned it over in his hand. This was either the biggest mistake of his life, or the beginning of something he never thought possible. The card said room 412. Max stepped out of the elevator. The carpet under his boots so soft it felt like walking on pillows. He kept his eyes down as he passed the other guests, well-dressed travelers with suitcases, phones, lives. A mother pulled her child a little closer when she saw him. The security guard at the front desk had given him a long look but didn't stop him. Max slid the card into the slot. A soft green light blinked. The door opened. He stepped inside and froze. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. The room was clean, bright, and warm. A king-sized bed with fluffy white pillows. A flat-screen TV, a desk, a mirror, a bathroom with white tile that gleamed. He stood there, not moving, not touching anything. The last hotel room he'd been in was back when he had a job and a wife. Back when he had a house, a life. Mac took a deep breath and walked toward the bathroom. The mirror stopped him cold. A stranger stared back. His hair was gray and matted, his beard twisted and filthy. His eyes sunk and haunted. His skin was a pale canvas of dirt and cold and time. Was this really him? He turned on the water. It sputtered, then poured hot. Steam filled the air. He undressed slowly, peeling off each layer like armor. His jeans were stiff with filth. His flannel shirt smelled like the streets. His socks had holes so large his toes had been poking through for weeks. He stepped into the shower. The hot water hit his skin like a miracle. He gasped, then sighed. He stood there, letting it pour over him, down his face, his back, his legs. 8 years of grime, sweat, and shame washed down the drain. He used the tiny hotel shampoo and soap bottles, lathered his beard, scrubbed behind his ears, rubbed his arms until his skin turned pink. The water turned brown, then less brown, then clear. He stayed under the stream until it began to cool. Then slowly, he stepped out and wrapped himself in the thick white towel. On the sink sat a disposable razor. He stared at it. After a long moment, he picked it up. He hadn't shaved in years. His hands trembled at first, but he moved slowly, carefully. First the cheeks, then the chin, then the neck. He left only a neat mustache. When he finished, he looked into the mirror again. Different. Still tired, still weathered, but less haunted, less lost. Folded on the bed were fresh clothes, sweatpants, a clean t-shirt, new socks and underwear. All in his size. He whispered aloud, how did he know? Bill Gates, of course. He dressed and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his old clothes piled on the floor. They looked like they belonged to someone else now. He lay back. The mattress embraced him. The pillows cradled his head. The blankets were heavy, warm, comforting. For the first time in years, Mac fell asleep without fear. No sirens, no wind, no footsteps near his head. No threats in the night, just silence. He dreamed of yellow daisies, of Tommy's baseball glove, of Sarah reading under a tree, of Rita's laugh. Dreams he hadn't let himself have in years. And when he woke up hours later, the sun gently warming his face through the curtains, Mac did something he hadn't done in a long, long time. He smiled. Bay. It was 9:43 a.m. Bill had said to meet him in the lobby at 10. Mac showered again, just because he could. He folded the hotel robe carefully, placed it at the foot of the bed. He looked at his old clothes one more time. Then he picked out only the jacket and boots. Everything else he left behind. He packed his old backpack. Inside were all his worldly possessions. A photo of Rita and the kids. A pocket knife. A cracked water bottle. Some toiletries from the shelter. Rio 837. He stood at the door, looked back at the room one last time. He wanted to remember this feeling. To remember being clean, being warm, being human. He stepped into the hallway, walked to the elevator, and as the doors opened into the lobby, Mac saw him. Bill Gates, standing near the front desk tapping at his phone, dressed in a clean gray sweater and slacks. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning," Bill said. "You look rested." "Best sleep I've had in years," Mac replied, touching his freshly shaven chin, still getting used to the feeling. "Hungry?" Mac nodded. They ate breakfast at the hotel restaurant. Mac ordered pancakes again. Why not? He'd earned it. "So," Mac said after draining his coffee, "what's the plan?" Bill finished a bite of toast and set down his fork. "I want you to show me your world," he said. "You're Cincinnati. Where you go. Where others like you go. The good places, the bad. I want to see it all." Mac blinked. "You want a tour of homeless life?" Bill nodded. "Exactly." "Why?" Bill stood, dropped a tip on the table, and smiled faintly. "I'll explain later," he said. "But I promise it matters." Mac studied him a moment. Still suspicious, still unsure, but curiosity had returned to his eyes. "All right," he said finally. "But I'm warning you. It's not pretty." "I'm not expecting pretty," Bill said. "I'm expecting real." Mac led the way. They left the hotel's polished marble floor behind and stepped out into the cold. Cincinnati morning. The sky was gray, the wind sharp, but Mac didn't seem to mind it as much now. Something had shifted in him. He walked with a little more purpose. Bill kept pace beside him, hands in his coat pockets, listening closely. "This is where I usually go in the mornings," Mac said, pointing toward a red brick building ahead. "Downtown Public Library. Warm, quiet. As long as you don't cause trouble, they let you stay all day. But you can't sleep there, and you can't eat." They crossed the street. "That bench right there?" Mac said, motioning to a worn metal seat near a bus stop. "I used to sit there every afternoon just watching. You can't stay too long, though. Cops'll move you, or someone will call because they felt unsafe." Bill nodded, jotting something into a small black notebook. "You always carry that thing?" Mac asked. Bill smiled. "Only when I know I'll learn something important." They walked further, past the bakery with locked restrooms, the grocery store that used to let people sit inside until too many complaints came in, and the alleyway behind the pharmacy. "That's where I used to sleep," Mac said quietly. "Behind those dumpsters. Smelled like grease and bleach, safer than most places. You can tuck yourself into that corner out of the wind." Bill paused, looking into the alley. "Do you ever come back here? Just to see it again?" Mac shook his head. "Only in dreams. Or nightmares." They kept walking. Mac pointed out the soup kitchen that served 2 meals a week, the clinic with the all-day waiting list, the food truck that sometimes handed out leftovers, if you were lucky enough to be there on the right day. "That church right there," Mac said, gesturing to a modest building with a peeling sign. "Tuesdays and Thursdays hot dinner, but only if you sign up by 3, and they don't let you stay long after you eat." They passed a group of people sitting on the sidewalk, huddled together for warmth, sharing a blanket. Bill nodded toward them. "Friends of yours?" Mac nodded. "Most of them. That's Deshaun, Linda, and the older guy is Marty. All good people. Marty used to be a high school chemistry teacher. Linda was a nurse. You'd be surprised who ends up out here." Bill looked at them, really looked. Not with pity, but with focus, with care. "So what about shelters?" Bill asked. "Where do you go at night?" Mac laughed bitterly. "If I'm lucky, Harbor Light over there." He pointed down the street to a squat, aging brick building with barred windows and a faded sign. "They've got 80 beds, Mac continued. "When it gets really cold, they lay out mats on the floor to squeeze more people in. But if you're drunk, high, no entry. So what do those folks do? Freeze, that's what. And during the day, you're out by 7 a.m. sharp. Doesn't matter if it's 10 degrees out or pouring rain, and there's nowhere to go. Can't loiter, can't rest, can't stay dry. The city wants us out of sight." Bill jotted more notes. "What's the hardest part?" Mac didn't answer right away. Finally he said, "It's not the cold, not even the hunger. It's the way people look through you, like you don't exist, like you're a stain on the sidewalk. Some days I wish someone would yell at me or curse me out. At least then I'd know they saw me." They walked in silence for a few minutes, until they reached the shelter itself. Inside, a woman at a desk looked up. "Check-in isn't until 6 p.m., she said automatically. We're not here to check in, Bill said calmly. I was hoping to speak with the director. My name is Bill Gates. She blinked. The Bill Gates? He nodded. She picked up the phone. I'll see if Mr. Turner is available. Mac leaned toward Bill. You just drop your name like that everywhere? Bill smiled. Only when it opens doors. Moments later, a tall man in his 50s appeared. African-American with tired eyes and a warm handshake. I'm Robert Turner, director here, he said. You wanted to speak with me? I'd like to see your facility, Bill replied. Mac has been showing me around the city. I'd like to learn more from the people doing the work on the ground. Turner looked at Mac and nodded slowly. He's a regular. Knows this place as well as any of us. He led them through the shelter. The main room had rows of narrow beds, thin mattresses, and a few battered lockers. The air smelled faintly of bleach and damp clothing. We've got 80 beds, Turner said, but only 10 on extreme weather nights. 4 full-time staff, 6 part-time, a few volunteers. He showed them the bathrooms, 1 out of order, the kitchen where 2 workers were prepping trays, and a cramped common area with an old television. Our biggest challenge, he said? Funding always. We turn away 20 to 30 people every night in the winter, and those are the ones who show up early. A young woman approached. She looked no older than 25, with shadows under her eyes and grease on her hands. Mr. Turner, the leak in the women's shower is fixed. Thank you, Tara. Gentlemen, this is Tara. She's staying next door at the women's shelter, but she helps us out whenever she can. Bill shook her hand. It's a pleasure. Tara nodded. I used to be a licensed electrician. Left my ex after he put me in the hospital. Lost my job. Then my apartment. Been bouncing between shelters ever since. What would help you most right now? Bill asked gently. Just a stable place to start again, she said. Somewhere to shower before a job interview. Somewhere to sleep without worrying if my stuff will be stolen. A few minutes later, an older man wearing a military cap approached them. You here to fix this place? He asked Bill. I'm here to understand it. Well, the man said, start with this, Army. 1st Infantry, Iraq, PTSD, lost my job. Lost my wife. Now I sleep in a room with 50 strangers who scream in their sleep. And when I scream, nobody blinks. What's your name? Bill asked. Bert. Bill shook his hand. I'm listening, Bert. As they walked through the shelter, Mac watched Bill carefully. He didn't flinch at the smells. He didn't recoil at the stories. He took notes. He shook hands. He listened. He cared. When they stepped back out into the daylight, the wind hit them again, cold and sharp. Bill closed his notebook and looked up. This system is failing people, he said. Mac nodded. It's been failing us for years. Mac nodded. It's been failing us for years. Bill turned to face him. And I want to change that. Mac raised an eyebrow. How? Bill's eyes were calm but resolute. Dinner, he said. Tonight. Somewhere quiet. And then I'll explain everything. Mac paused, studying him again. I'm not cleaning up for you, he said. This is what homelessness looks like. You don't like it, don't invite it to dinner. I don't expect pretty, Bill replied. I expect real. Dinner was nothing like Mac expected. No cameras. No reporters. No lectures. Just a modest Italian restaurant on a quiet street in the Clifton neighborhood. Red and white tablecloths. Flickering candles in old wine bottles. And the hum of quiet conversation. The owner greeted Bill like an old friend. Your usual table, Mr. Gates? Thanks, Marco, Bill said. Then gestured to Mac. And tonight there are 2 of us. Mac sat slowly, still getting used to the feel of clean clothes on his skin. Bill had offered to buy him a new outfit earlier that day. A basic set of khakis. A plain shirt, socks, and sneakers. Mac had resisted at first, but Bill insisted. You're not just my guest, he said. You're my partner tonight. Partner. That word still echoed in Mac's head. They ordered, Bill a grilled salmon, Mac a plate of pasta. When the waiter left, Mac leaned forward. All right, he said. Enough mystery. You've seen the shelters. Walked the streets. Heard the stories. Why me? Why any of this? Bill folded his hands on the table. He looked tired but also determined. I want to build something, he said. Something new. A pilot program. A different approach to homelessness. Mac raised an eyebrow. A shelter? No, a system, Bill replied. One that actually works. He pulled a folder from his bag and laid it on the table. Inside were charts, diagrams, reports, maps. Mac didn't know what half of it meant, but he recognized the word Cincinnati and the phrase Second Chance Initiative. "What is this?" he asked. "My idea," Bill said. "A comprehensive support center. Not just beds, not just soup. A full-service place, transitional housing, job training, mental health care, addiction services, family reunification programs all under one roof." Mac blinked. "You want to put all that in one building?" Bill nodded. "And I want you to help me design it." Silence. Mac stared at him like he'd just suggested flying to the moon. "You want me to help?" he asked slowly. "You've lived it," Bill said. "You know what works and what doesn't. You know what people need. I don't want another think tank full of experts who've never spent a night on the street. I want you." Mac leaned back, skeptical. "I haven't had a job in almost a decade. I don't have a degree. I don't even have a bank account." "Then we start there," Bill said. "We'll get you everything you need. Apartment, phone, ID, clothes, salary. You'd be a paid consultant, full-time." Mac chuckled bitterly. "You really think I can just jump from sleeping in a shelter to running a program?" "No," Bill said honestly. "I think you'll need help and support. But I also think you have more insight in your left hand than most executives have in their entire careers." Mac stared at his plate. This couldn't be real. 3 days ago, he'd been asking strangers for $1. Now Bill Gates was offering him a job and a place to live. "What if I screw it up?" Mac asked quietly. "What if I fail?" Bill leaned in. "Then we adjust," he said. "This isn't about being perfect. It's about trying." Mac didn't answer. He kept his eyes on the table. His hands trembled slightly. Whether from fear or hope, he couldn't tell. After a long silence, he looked up. "Can I think about it?" "Of course," Bill said and handed him a key. "There's an apartment above this restaurant. Marco owns it. It's yours for a few days while you decide." Mac took the key like it was made of gold. "And if I say no?" he asked. "Then we part ways," Bill said. "No hard feelings. You'll have a warm place to stay for a few nights. But if you say yes, we get to work together." Bay. The apartment was small but clean. A twin bed, a dresser, a kitchenette, and a tiny desk by the window. There were clothes in the drawers, a stocked fridge, a toothbrush and toothpaste on the sink. Mac sat on the bed, staring at the key in his hand. Was this really happening? He thought of Tara, of Bert, of the woman at the shelter who fixed the shower. Even though she didn't have a place to live, he thought of Rita, of Tommy, of Sarah. Could he become someone they'd be proud of again? He opened the window and looked down at the street. The people walking by, the city lights, the wind rustling the trees. And he whispered, "Maybe." Bay. The next morning, over scrambled eggs and toast, Mac slid the key across the table. "I'm in," he said. Bill grinned. "Good," he said, "because we've got a lot of work to do." 3 months later, the warehouse space had been gutted and transformed. New wiring, new plumbing, fresh walls, beds on the first floor, classrooms and counseling rooms on the second, transitional housing on the third. Mac now had an office with a door, a nameplate, and a view of the street he used to sleep on. He wore clean clothes every day, took the bus to meetings, helped write policy proposals, interviewed new staff. The Second Chance Center was real, and Mac, he was at the heart of it. He still carried his old backpack, cleaned and stitched, but the same one. Inside it was a photo of Rita and the kids. And the hotel keycard. Room 412. One evening, after a long staff meeting, Bill pulled him aside. We just got a grant to open 2 more centers, Cleveland and Columbus. Mac blinked. That's incredible. And I want you to be director of expansion, Bill said. You'd oversee the programs across the state. Mac was stunned. I'm still figuring out email, he joked. Bill smiled. You've figured out something more important. How to make people feel seen. Mac didn't answer right away. He just nodded. Bay. 2 years later. The Second Chance Initiative had spread beyond Ohio. 4 more states had adopted the model. Mac stood in a modest brick building in Columbus, the 4th center he'd helped open. He walked the halls, greeted residents, checked on staff. He paused at a bulletin board filled with photos, before and afters, handwritten thank you notes, drawings from children. One note read, Dear Mr. Miller, thank you for helping my dad get clean. He made me pancakes this morning, first time in years. Bay. 3 years later, Mac bought a small house, 2 bedrooms, a backyard. He invited Rita to see it. I know it's not much, he said. She smiled. It's more than enough. They weren't married again, but they were something close. Older, gentler versions of the people they used to be. Sarah brought her son to visit. Tommy came with his wife and daughter. The house rang with laughter again. Bay. 5 years later, at the opening of the 10th Second Chance Center, Mac stood at the podium. The crowd included governors, mayors, and families from every background. When I was homeless, he said, I thought I'd never be more than a face people walked past. Then a man sat down next to me and asked me to tell my story. That changed everything. He looked out across the crowd. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. People don't need a miracle. They need a chance. And someone who believes in them. He paused. I got mine. Now it's my turn to give it. Bay. After the ceremony, Bill and Mac sat under a tree outside the center, sharing a coffee. You ever think, Bill said, that all of this started because you asked me for $1? Mac grinned. And you never gave it to me. Bill shrugged. I gave you something better. Mac nodded, eyes shining. You gave me my name back.